collaborative and creative applications and programs and organizations within teams, and ultimately building teams with inclusivity and inclusion in mind. And so this, I invite you all, you can skip this slide. This is ultimately going to be a session that's going to go over what is your dream team? Who do who do you value on your team? What do you value in a team member? How do we use inclusive practices to build teams? And how do we use inclusive practices to empower others? And so I ask you, what does creativity and diversity have to do with one another? Thank you so much. I'm glad you asked. So what they have to do with one another is, for my research specifically, cognitive diversity appreciation, we're going to use some cognitive practices which are rooted in creativity theory and foresight, for one, and a lot of different creative practices that help you hone into those different characteristics and different traits. Diversity can be described in so many different ways, using race, ethnicity, social economic status, sexual orientation, religion, etc. But rarely do we think about the way you think as being a form of diversity as well. Unfortunately, right now, and what I hope in the future is that cognitive diversity will be something that is protected as well, because the way in which that we display our intellectual property and share our ideas should be something that is valued and protected. In most cases, this is the reason why individuals are hesitant to share their ideas amongst groups, or hesitant to show they empower others because of the way they're treated. And so it's one thing to be different in a team, but it's another thing to feel different amongst a team. And so when if you're a person with big ideas, or you're a person who is logical or analytical, or a person who is a finisher or a risk taker, or a person who takes initiative to make sure something is complete, how do you work with others who are not like you? Because at the end of the day, a lot of us like to work with people who are like-minded than us. But what about the folks who are different than us? What about that? Are we able to work with them? Sure, we're able to because we're professionals, but do we want to at the end of the day? Would we rather work with these individuals? So this presentation will be more of a conversation, not me just talking, but you talking back to me as well. So I invite you all to be enthusiastic, to be empowered. Please know this is a safe and a brave space for you to contribute to the conversation. And I would like you all to, we're going to have 2 breakout rooms, but I would like you all to write in the chat as well, ask questions. Please offer your feedback. And when something resonates with you, go ahead and write it in the chat. I'm going to ask questions to the group as well. And I would love for you all to answer those within the chat as well. So I'm going to ask an opening question. Imagine you are on a large ship, and in order to save the passengers, you must toss off a piece of luggage, aka your values. So what do you value? What characteristics make up your Justice League or team? So these can be things like loyalty, timeliness, cleanliness, grit, tenacity, audacity, things like that. So go ahead and write in the chat, what types of things do you value in a dream team? Humor, I'm going to read them off as I see them, because collaboration, reliability, respect, joy, honesty, authenticity, flexibility, respect, compromise, transparency, awesome. Give and take, absolutely. Absolutely. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go careful and listening, kindness, respect, boldness. Absolutely. So with that, we're going to go into a breakout room to start, but just in one moment, I'm going to ask you one more question before we go in the breakout room so that you can debrief with your groups. If you had a superpower, because this is the Justice League we're talking about here, if you put it in the mind frame of, Superman, Spider-Man, Wonder Woman, Storm, and all those cool figures, because I like that type. But if you put it in those creative terms in that way, If you had a superpower, what would it be? And how would you use it to show inclusivity? So think about that. Think about that as well. If you had a superpower right now, write it in the chat and tell me what it would be. Just the superpower alone. If you had a superpower, what would it be? Empathy, someone said. Empathy, someone else said. Welcoming, what else? What else? If you had a superpower, what would it be? Diffusing conflict. Awesome. Persuasion, patience, active listening, absolutely. Remove blinders, my own, and seeing you. Understanding diverse thinking modes. Awesome. So we're going to touch on that a little later in our second breakout room. But what I want you to talk about, and why I did that is because I wanted to introduce the Justice League, Social Justice League to you first. But in our first breakout room, what I would like you to discuss is pick four. We'll go with two. Pick two of your values. Pick two values for you to keep your superpowers for your team. Pick two values. And then I want you to toss off the values. And then I want your group to only have one. So if everyone in the group has two values and you talk about, oh, I actually like reliability and I like transparency, get rid of one of those values. And then as a group, I want you to all come together and have one value that you value as your dream team. So I'm going to say that again because it can kind of be a little confusing. In the beginning, I want you to come to the table with two things that you value for a dream team. Could be reliability, transparency, or whatever you choose. But then as a group, I want you to start eliminating some of the things that you're willing to get rid of, and then have one at the end. And then we'll discuss it. Any questions?
All set?
Mm-hmm.
One for the whole group, Janella wants to know?
One for the entire group, yes.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. Everyone is back. Welcome back.
You didn't tell us how much time we're supposed to have.
So what do we talk about? This is a conversation. I want to know what do we talk about in the group? Who wants to share from their group what they went over? This is a diversity conversation, and I'm going to teach you some, of course, diversity application to your group, but we can't do that without dialogue. And the hardest thing about diversity and diversity training and things of that nature is actually talking about it. Talking about diversity can be so difficult because most people don't know the correct approach, and there is not a correct like a right or wrong way. You don't know what you don't know, but when you actively seek out some different tools to help you have dialogue with other people, it can be very helpful to kind of break barriers, break character, and actually disarm folks to talk about diversity. Oftentimes people are diversity talks can cause feelings of, people can attach themselves to different points of diversity that will allow them to disengage from the actual conversation. Feelings of guilt and shame and privilege and or oppression, abilities or disabilities. And before you even actually get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation, people are already turned off because of the way it was presented. And so I invite you all again to be enthusiastic, be authentic as well, and be willing to actually have a dialogue, because having this conversation is the way you actually have a diversity conversation, and is the way that we can build better inclusive teams, because we are now not only not afraid, but we're more equipped and we practice how to have dialogue with different individuals. So tell me, let's talk. What did you talk about? What did you talk about in your groups? This is a safe and brave space.
Can they take themselves off mute?
Absolutely.
All right. Feel free to unmute yourself.
I'll share.
Awesome.
Team, we each provided our two values, and we very easily started talking about which ones were similar, how we thought they related to one another, and then moved into which ones we liked the most and why, and just had a conversation about what they each meant to us and which led to converging to the one that we selected.
And which one did you select?
We selected resilience.
Resilience. Awesome. Tell me why.
We selected resilience because each of our other values tended to fit within it. And, you know, to be resilient, you needed to be open-minded, you needed to have respect, you needed to be trustworthy and honest. So all of those things we kind of wrapped up into that value of resilience.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for sharing. Can I hear from another group? What did you talk about and what did you land on? What did you talk about and what did you land on? Safe and brave space.
I'll share.
Awesome.
So, hi everyone. So similar to what Missy said, we shared and then we quickly kind of looked at how they're similar. And I really liked how when I explained mine, someone asked me, well, how does that make you feel? Like it really, it just showed like valuing each other's opinion, wanting to learn more about where we're coming from. So we did find, we were in agreement. We didn't have enough time, but I hope I can speak for the group that I think that the one that represents us is freedom. Because
freedom.
It encompassed all four of the kind of top four that we had, which were being authentic and actively listening. So having the freedom to be yourself and to express yourself with the group. So I hope
awesome.
That works for everybody. You can chime in and unmute if I missed. Thanks.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing. I can't tell you how important it is to have authenticity and have freedom of expression in a place that you work or a place that you're leading or within a unit that you're leading, organization that you're working with. Being able to be free to be yourself and express yourself and your cognitive abilities and skills is why we're here today, because cognitive diversity is a way to express yourself in a way that we should appreciate one another for how they present themselves in a group. So that's awesome. I want one more group to share and then I'll go to the chat in just a moment. So one more group, what did you talk about and what did you land on? Safe and brave space. This is the Justice League. Everybody's brave here. So it's a safe and brave space. So what did you do? What did you talk about?
I'll go. It's Marilyn.
Oh, go ahead.
I think that
Awesome.
we each contributed two. So we had respect, curiosity, honesty, trust, transparency, and humor. And some of us are better at grouping. Like, does one fall under the other? So where's the bigger umbrella? And then let's put the ones that belong under that umbrella, and then let's look for one umbrella. So the one umbrella we ended up with was transparency.
Awesome.
No matter what, we needed to be transparent.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So let's go to the chat. Everyone who hasn't had the opportunity to speak, I want you to go to the chat and I have a question. What was the most difficult thing? What was it? Because, we all come into, our organizations, people we work with, the units that we lead, the teams that we lead with our own unique values, with our own set of thoughts and perspectives. Coming into it, what was the hardest thing? What was the hardest value to let go? What was the hardest value to let go? And I'm going to read some off in the chat. Choosing, we want them all, plus giving up our own. So go to the chat. What was the hardest one to let go? Humor. I like to laugh too, so I can understand humor. Collaboration. What else? Someone said, letting go of Deb and Amy. I'm not sure. I hope no one had to let go of anyone in general. But what else? What are some other things that was very difficult for you to let go? Listening, open-mindedness. What else? What was hard for you to let go? Let's change gears. What was easy for you to give up, if anything? What was easier for you to let go, if anything? And go to the chat. Again, I encourage you all to be enthusiastic, and even if you're not speaking out, you can speak in the chat. So listening was easy for someone to give up. What else? What else was easier to let go of a value? I was not overly attached to my word choices. I was open to others. That's awesome. Easy to collaborate. Playful. It was smaller than the other ones. Why give up values at all, right? So I think I'm happy that someone brought that up. Why do we have to give up our values? Most times because we're talking about the Social Justice League, and we're talking about a team here. And when you're working on a team, you have folks who are coming in with different perspectives, and not all perspectives are going to take priority over one. And sometimes compromise is important. And so maybe one perspective may have to take a back seat where another one takes the priority. And so giving up the values, you may not give them up totally and get rid of them, but they may have to take a back seat for later because one may be the best fit for the decision right now. It's difficult to pick the hardest when we came to the conclusion that one value would help all of the values. Awesome. It was harder to state that I wasn't quite bought in. Introduce my team, psychological state, no retaliation for wacky ideas. That's awesome to say, because a lot of times the things that we think or the things that we say out loud get attacked, right? And so we're like, oh, I don't think I want to share that anymore. I have this wild and crazy idea, and I don't want to share it because the last time I shared it, I didn't feel valued. I didn't feel heard, and I didn't feel like I was seen. So that's important as well. Let's see. Empathy also is important as well, transparency and things of that nature. So again, I'm going to go to the chat again. Diversity being such a difficult subject to talk about for some, for most, I'll say that because it can be very heavy. What do you find easy to talk about diversity? Can it be, is it easy or is it difficult to you? That's the question. Is diversity easy to talk about? Easy or difficult? Or neutral? Go to the chat. Easy, difficult, or neutral? Go to the chat. Easy, difficult, neutral. Depends on who you're talking to. Ditto. Absolutely. Definitely depends. Easier, the more I do it. Sometimes difficult. You have to read the room first. Thank you for that insight. Let's talk about that. Reading the room first. Oftentimes, more oftentimes than not, when us as leaders in this room are leading our groups and our teams, we are not checking the temperature of the room. Checking the temperature of the room, not literally in the literal sense, but in the figurative sense. You're checking in with your group and your constituents or your team members or whoever you're leading. You're asking them, how do they feel? And by doing that, you make your team members feel valued. Making your team members feel valued, your productivity will increase, and that is a guarantee. Because people tend to work harder when they feel valued in a place. People tend to strive for more when they feel that they can achieve more and they are able to move upward, not necessarily in a literal sense, but they are able to grow and feel safe in a space that they're working with. Let's see. Someone said, it's tough. I want to talk about the elephant in the room, but sometimes people don't know how to acknowledge it. Absolutely. Yes, temperature checks. Love that term. Yes, so you have to check the temperature in the room and ask people how they're feeling. They can say hot, cold, neutral. They can say fever. They can say feeling cold or however. But more or less, this is what I do when I check the temperature with my groups. I try to make it fun. I try to make it creative and something that is completely unrelated so that I can relate it later. If most of you are aware of some of the creative tools that creativity tools called forced connections, where you use a picture or something. My different way is to use random words to connect a different theory. So this is called two random words. So I would ask someone in my group, we're talking about checking temperatures with your team to appreciate the diversity of the room. I would ask them, how are you feeling today? Hi everyone. Welcome to our staff meeting, weekly staff meeting. How are you feeling today? In one word, in breakfast terms. So they'll say, what? Breakfast terms? And I'll start and lead by an example. I'm feeling like a boiled egg because I am solid and I'm focused right now. And so then leading by example, I would give them that and then ask them, how are you feeling in terms of breakfast? So I'm going to check the temperature of the room right now. And I'm going to ask you all, how are you feeling in terms of breakfast? How are you feeling? And tell how you're feeling in terms of a breakfast food. Again, I said I'm feeling like a boiled egg because I'm solid and I'm focused right now. I'm just impacted. So how are you feeling? Dig deep for that creativity. Dig deep for that. A cracked egg, a smoothie, energized, bacon, salty and awesome. That's right. I love bacon. A waffle has lots of pockets that catch sweetness. That's awesome. Dig deep, everyone. Dig deep. Made to order eggs, not much. Let's see. Made to order eggs, not much time for planning, but ready to handle whatever requests come my way. That's awesome. Irish coffee, saucy, bacon because I'm finding this talk very tasty and sizzling. Oh, that's awesome. A shake, mixed of things. Thanks, I have pockets. Ham and egg sandwich, layered and fulfilling. A bagel, a circle of love. That's awesome. An omelet with too many fillings. Got a lot going on. Like oats in a parfait, cinnamon, got pancakes, ready to soak up all the info. That's awesome. So why did I ask you to do that? You know, energy juice. Someone said energy juice. Not only are we temperature checking, but as leaders, when you ask that diversity question, that's that creative question that actually ties into diversity, you know who to check in with specifically after that meeting. If someone is telling you they feel like a runny egg or something that doesn't sound as well, if someone likes runny eggs, that's on them. But I'm just saying, something that doesn't sound, I guess, typically appetizing, you know who to check in with. You know who's having an awesome day versus who's not having such an awesome day. And so that you now know how to kind of approach them and maybe back off a little bit as a leader. Like, okay, they're obviously overwhelmed or they're obviously not at the tip of their game because of the word that they chose to use. So now the diversity of my group is different. The way that they're thinking right now is different. We have some happy team members, some not so happy team members, or some focused team members. You know how and when to check in with your folks now at this point. Someone says chocolate chip pecan pancakes, sweet and nutty. Never had those. I'm going to try it. Helps to refocus your team. Someone said love this tool as well. So let's talk about it. Is any questions so far? Anything muddy or murky, or you're energized by this tool? Can you see yourself using it in your organizations? Someone told me yesterday in a session that they have a team member who is extremely closed, not willing to really share even during a check-in. The yes or no answers, if you will, and the I'm great, everything's great, but sometimes they're not so great. And so they told me that they're going to use this tool as an approach to try to help their team member to open up some more. So from the group, I just need two folks to give me some insight from this activity and how would you use it, and how does it relate to you in the work that you do. So this is a safe and brave space, and tell me how this may resonate with you. You can unmute yourself. Safe and brave space, I just said.
Hi.
Awesome.
I'm Deb. Yeah, I was just gonna say, with change management work, I think a lot of times change is scary and people feel like they can't say what they really feel about it. So I think this is a great way for people to add complexity to what they feel. Instead of good or bad, yay or nay, it's more in depth. They can describe it in a few different ways when they take something like breakfast food or any other thing that you would use as a prompt. I love it.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you said that. Absolutely, anything that you want, you can do. I use breakfast food often. I like breakfast, but if you can use ice cream, you can use dinner, you can use songs, movies, however.
Yeah.
Yes, song titles. You can do whatever you want to make this activity your own and help your team members to open up. Because if someone says something that is thought provoking to you, you're gonna want to say, "Tell me more about that." And that's a good approach. Instead of sounding like you're crying, it actually sounds like you care. Tell me more about that. So thank you for sharing that. Absolutely.
Ashley, I
Yes.
can't wait to share this with the therapeutic humor world, because this is light and playful way to get at what really needs to be said.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
this is like, I have a lot of friends who are therapists.
Mhm.
And this is like a great way to get at hardened teenagers, to get them, because once you start talking, once you say, I'm like bacon, and you've said those words out loud, then you're able to say other words out loud.
Absolutely. 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 Thank you for saying this is a light and playful way to get at what needs to be said, because that is the approach that I use for diversity in general, because diversity is already heavy. It's already hard to talk about. It's actually can be very difficult to train based off all of the things we've already talked about. But when you approach it in a light and playful way, and when you encourage others to allow themselves to be playful, that's important. When you encourage other people to allow themselves to be playful so that you can be creative and authentic and actually be real about what you're saying when you allow yourself to be playful. And so thank you for saying that. That's important. Thank you. Who else? One more insight. How would you use this at work?
I'm going to use it in the behavioral health field as well, Beth. I work with a bunch
No.
of folks that do behavioral health and addiction treatment care. We're actually doing a Summer of Big Ideas sessions. So I'm looking for more diversity in that workspace, because most of the leaders are white. And most of the people we serve are Indigenous and Black and Brown people. So this is really cool for me. And what I wanted to say about the exercise is, it's a way to create a safe space so people could define it. So I use the cracked egg, which people could think it's a negative thing, but I felt I piggybacked off of you that I have some strength in that egg, and I'm also open to change the way I think. So it didn't necessarily mean that I was cuckoo, as people might think cracked egg would be defined as, but I think it's a way to create a safe space, because if I didn't mean that and I didn't feel safe enough to share what I meant, I was able to express myself. And then I love that idea that you said we could reach out as leaders to touch base.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the fact that you used correct egg. You know why? Because that segues into perspective. And so when we are able to change the way we process or think, we are able to change our perspective, because most times the way we see things, leaders and constituent, is here. We're not seeing with, we're like, oh, this is what I thought. This is what I've explicitly been taught. This is what I've explicitly seen or saw on TV. But if we train ourselves to, think differently, then we can change the way we see things and change our perspective. Like for a student or a team member or behavioral health or whomever, if you're saying that, if they say to you, I feel like a cracked egg, you can ask them, tell me more about that. Do you perceive that as, how do you perceive that as a good or bad thing? And then someone can actually explore and tell you, actually, it's a good thing. I don't feel bad. I feel open. And then people are allowed to, now you have invited them in a way that is light, playful, and creative. Thank you all for that. Snaps. Someone said snaps. Oh, yeah, that's it, snapped. So yes, this is great. This is great. So we're going to move on to yeah, we're gonna move on back to our superpower question. So, what's your superpower? If you had a superpower, what would it be? And how would you use it to be inclusive in your organizations? And so we have went into the chat about that, just as an introduction to, you know, the Justice League and all that. But now we're going to go into a breakout room and talk about that with one another. So I will see you in 5 minutes, and dig deep, be creative, use your safe and brave space to be authentic and empower one another to be their best selves. So I'll see you in 5.
She's heavy.
Oh no. Well, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So, like the last time, I want to hear from 3 people. Tell me what you talked about. What's your superpower, and how would you use it to be inclusive in your organization? Safe and brave space. And that's another tool. I will say that. That's another tool that you can use in your team to, when you're in a meeting and you're asking for feedback, to let the folks know that this is a safe and a brave space and an environment. You would think that people would know that working within the team that you're leading or you're working with, but people don't unless you say it. People like to be reassured, if you will, that, you know, their thoughts and their ideas are valued and that they're safe. And so when you reiterate that and you say out loud, this is a safe and a brave space, even for the behavioral health professionals here. Saying those words out loud, words have power. So you're saying those words to folks, you can empower others to be their authentic selves and share. So I'm going to say it again. This is a safe and brave space. I need 3 people to tell me what they talked about in their groups.
Martina, tell our story.
Awesome.
Okay, so hi again. Our superpower was freedom, and we used it to make space. And we have a couple different space ideas. There is space in people's roles. So they're really going to, like, we value our people so much that we give them space to take their role where they think it can go, to be creative on things that they can bring to the company. So space in their roles. And then also, yeah, and then a physical space where people can be free to express themselves. And since we are superheroes, we have magic powers. And this freedom room, where you have this space to be free, has a magic door that when you leave, the negative ideas do not come up with you. So when you leave, any kind of doubts or fears about yourself or others, they don't come out into the world. They stay back there. The magic door of our freedom space keeps us positive coming out.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
We had a fun and creative group.
Awesome. That's an idea. That's a idea that you could turn in the literal sense to the teams that you work with individually. How do you, whether it's a poster board or a campaign that you start at your organizations, that's awesome. Great. Someone else.
Hi, this is Shafali, and I was particularly taken by something that Kelsey Segaloff said. She said in her company, their values form the acronym HEART, which stands for humility, empathy, remarkable, transparent. I'm not sure what the A was. I missed that. But she herself prides herself on transparency and uses transparency so that even in things like when, if you're in a position of power, you make sure that people are being paid fairly according to the work they do. But I think I also like the idea that their management gives $100 to each colleague to give to another person in their team every month for displaying one of these qualities. And I thought that was fantastic.
Oh, wow. $100. That is cool. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And one more. Just looking for a little pin here. One more. One more person to share. What did you talk about in your groups? What did you talk about in your groups? Safe and brave space.
I'll go again.
Awesome.
So if you're tired of hearing from me, just mute me. I guess you can do that, Beth, right? You can say, oh my God, not you again. We had Amy and Cynthia, myself in the group. So Amy was removed. We each talked about our own superpowers rather than just going down to one. So maybe we broke the rules here, Dr. Ashley, but okay. They all kind of roll into one big visionary ball, which is Amy wanted to remove blinders so that she could unveil all the things we really don't know and we aren't able to see. And Cynthia wanted to be a mind reader so that what people say and what people think can often be really different. So she wants to be able to read people's minds. We called that a super interpreter. And I said I would like to physically be able to walk in somebody's shoes, like literally crawl inside their bod, their head, and walk in their shoes so I could see the world from their perspective. And when you look at it was all about being able to climb into somebody else's mind, body, presence to experience the world from that perspective.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's important because when thinking about diversity, again, we're talking about individualistic, qualities, characteristics, skills, abilities, disabilities, or what have you. And so we have to do that by looking within also. It's important that we're not just asking folks, who are you? What do you do? But who are we and what do we do? What are we capable of as well? And so when you think about yourself being empowered or empowering others, just like when you get on an airplane, they say you have to put on your own oxygen mask before you're able to assist others. And that's the same thing, same idea here. You have to be able to empower yourself in order to empower the team members around you. And so by looking within you're finding your intrinsic motivation. What empowers you? What is your superpower? And how would you figuratively use that to be, helpful to others? And how could you make it a more inclusive environment as well? So I thank you all for participating in that. And I want to just go to the chat for a minute and just read out some things. Heart, humble, empathetic, adaptable, remarkable. Those are great values. Someone says they also have a 4-inch tall painting of Wonder Woman in their classroom, in their room, and now they're thinking about it at this session when they look. That's awesome. Awesome. Someone said this would be fantastic for SEL and in classrooms. Great. So we're going to talk, we have superheroes and we're superheroes, we're brave and we're safe here. What do you have when you're a superhero? You have like a nemesis, right? You always have something or someone that may not, that may present a roadblock in which we cannot be but that makes it difficult to be our best selves at work. So tell me if that's true or false. Say true or false in the chat. Do you feel that there is a noun, person, place, or thing that doesn't necessarily allow for your best creative or authentic self in your groups? Let me know. True or false, or sometimes. Go on the chat. Someone said true, exclamations. True. Sometimes. Awesome. Yeah. Someone said sometimes. And so let me read off some things that, some person, places, or things, or, while you're working on an initiative or anything of that nature that may happen. So you may be working on an initiative and someone may be sarcastic about others' ideas. If that is true at all for any of you, or maybe it's you never know, and that's okay too. Then go ahead and write your check because we're talking about intrinsic diversity as well. So So if say, go ahead and true if that ever happened to you or resonates with you, being sarcastic about others' ideas. And just to remind you all again, we're talking about you being a superhero and something being a nemesis to you or not allowing you to be your best self. When someone's the timekeeper and is making sure everyone stays on task, but is not really helping about that. Go in the chat and think about that. Sometimes definitely some kryptonite here. So awesome. What about when someone is being the ultimate engineer? So they take over the entire project without asking for others' input. Has anybody ever experienced that? Someone taking on the entire project. Or someone, this is a good thing, someone who is being understanding and attempts to incorporate everyone's ideas. Anybody experience that? That's a good thing. That's very helpful. Somebody says you just tuned out. Yes, or hijacking the session with their own purpose. Yep, been through that, absolutely. What about someone who is just agreeable and just goes with the flow? They're not helpful. Someone says, especially senior management. Yes, but sometimes I just want the conversation versus the actual change. Yeah. So what about someone who's agreeable and just goes with the flow, but they're not really helpful? Unspoken politics in the room, often, yeah. Or how about someone who just doesn't contribute much at all? They just are disengaged and they don't really want to, engage in what's happening. How about that? Has anybody ever experienced that? Yes, ambivalence. Yep, ambivalence. Let's see, where are we? Oh, I just went away. Ambivalence. Sometimes there is pocket veto. I'll think about it, but never really approves or denies an idea. So no follow through there. There's no follow through or there's no follow up. Yes, let's see. Body in the room disengaged. That can be discouraging. So how do we work through our arch nemesis? How do we work through that figuratively? How do we positively and use our superpowers to combat the arch nemesis in our organizations? Think about that. Think about that for just a moment. And I'd like 2 people to be safe and brave and to answer that out loud. How would you use your superpower to combat some of these arch nemesis things? How would you use your superpower to combat that? 2 folks, safe and brave.
Dr. Goodwin, we talked in our session about using our collaboration skills that we learned from CPSI, but not just to solve a business problem, but to intentionally make it more inclusive. So that tie that you mentioned at the start, like how do we use that superpower for that purpose intentionally?
Yeah, awesome. Being intentional. That is a superpower in itself. Being intentional about being appreciative, about showing value, telling people thank you for their hard work and their dedication. That goes a long way. That's saying thank you is a superpower from a leader in itself. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your hard work this week. Thank you for sending that email out. Things of that nature. So those go a long ways. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, definitely. One more person. Definitely showing gratitude and appreciation is a superpower. Yes, absolutely. Anything else? One more person.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So I put my superpower as like the arms of an octopus, whoever that character was, reaching out to network with people. And so to overcome your arch nemesis, which could be a person who is disengaged, is to try and find a better way to approach them, to like what could interest them. Maybe the project that's going on isn't of interest, but maybe you could find something else that they want to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. That's great because that's a different approach of, it may be, perceived as negative because this is a nemesis, right? But how do we approach this and use positive reframing? So that is another tool that you can use as a creative way to combat these issues that you could be having at work. And I'm talking about this because diversity has its serious points too. Yes, create a safe and brave space where you can be creative, but we have to be real here and say that having difficult conversations are and having the ability to have them in a productive way does happen. And the fact that in most cases we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. How are we comfortable with being uncomfortable? How can we learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable having difficult conversations? So that is awesome. So I want to talk to you about the triple A strategy. The triple A strategy, and you can write this down, is something that is important because we're not perfect, right? And sometimes people use pop culture terms that can be offensive to others in their groups. You can use things that have microaggressive terms that and if you don't know what microaggressions are, they're kind of like subtle language that is offensive to others. Things that say, "Oh, for instance, you are pretty for a Black girl," and I'm saying that because that's a microaggression I've heard before, or personally for myself, or something. You are. I didn't expect it to. I heard Dr. Goodwin, but I didn't expect it to be you. And so things of that nature. So things that are subtle to you. You're smart for a such and such. You're tall for a such and such. So some folks use microaggressive language and they don't even know they're using it, right? And so they use their implicit bias to, invite others to lunch or invite others to, apply for this position or join this initiative. So we're not perfect. And so some people use cliches and things of that nature. And you're like, okay, so what happened here? So using the triple A strategy, we allow ourselves to, triple A meaning accept. You accept that something offended someone. Okay. So if someone has brought to you that something was offensive to them, use the triple A strategy to show them that you value what was brought to you or across your desk. So you accept. The first A is accepting that an incident, or rather big, micro, macro, or small, happened. And the second one is to apologize, right? Apologize for, guess what? Yeah, you may not have intended it, but it impacted them. So that intent versus impact is very important as well. You may not have intended to hurt anyone's feelings or be offensive at all, but the normal, just acknowledging, apologizing and for some, if you don't like that word, acknowledging that there was something that happened here that hurt someone. Okay, that's important as well, because some folks may not feel like the apologizing part is what they'd like to do. But guess what? Acknowledging that something happened and acknowledging that there was something to take an offense here is also important. And then finally, the second A is act. The act of what do we do next? Do we move on from here? And how do we do this in a productive way where both parties or all the parties in the room can agree to disagree, and there has been a safe and a brave, inclusive environment created from this and a learning outcome from this in general. So that's probably the most serious part of this presentation and the tools is the triple A strategy, because it's very important that you have that in your toolkit, because we can play the lighthearted games, but sometimes some really heavy things come across our desk. And how do we handle those and have those difficult conversations if we don't know how to? So that's one of those. So we're going to go to the next slide. And this is going to be our last breakout room. And it is the Cause of Diversity web. So for the first web, you're going to use the outer layer of the web to describe the diversity traits others are able to see. So you can only do like 2 to 3. Think about things that people can see that are diverse from you. I wear glasses. I'm Black, I'm a woman, or however you choose to describe things that you think people are able to see from you. And then on the inner layer, give yourself 2 to 3 of things that people wouldn't know about you that is diverse. Remember, diversity in broad terms: socioeconomic status, gender, sexual orientation, marriage, and family, all these different things. What are the things that people wouldn't know just by looking at you? 2 to 3 things. So leading by example. So for intrinsic, for me, things that you wouldn't be able to know: I'm engaged, I am a mother, and I'm a part of a sorority. So those are things that you wouldn't know just by looking. And so I will see you in 5. And just to reiterate, 2 to 3 things that people can see that are diverse, and 2 to 3 things that people would not know just by looking at what meets the eye. Okay, see my magnifying glass, very important. Of what meets the eye. Okay, awesome. See you in 5, everyone.
Bye.
Yay, everyone's back. Welcome back. Welcome back. And so we're going to follow suit like we did the last time. It's a safe and brave space. I would like 3 folks from their groups to tell me what you talked about. So just give me some insight about your groups and what you found out. 3 folks. Yes.
I can kick us off. So we talked about things like gender expression and age, and race and physical ability as something that you might be able to see. But also, I had physical ability as also something you might not be able to see. So it kind of lived on both sides. And then talking about things like relationship status, mental health, sexual orientation, whether you have kids or not, as things that you might not see.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And 2 more groups. So next, what you talk about? What are the insights that you got?
So we also write the external or the outer layer and the inner layer, but we also talked about the fact that you can get into a lot of trouble with your assumptions, and as we were 3 women, it would be easy to say, oh, well, right, we're definitely on the same label, et cetera, et cetera. But you just can't make assumptions. And because all 3 of us are pretty empathetic, which is probably true for most of us at CPSI, we can make these assumptions. And then I said, yes, and that can get you into a lot of trouble. And then Missy said, you can also be missing out on so much with those assumptions. And I really loved how she reframed that and her point of view, because mine was kind of, negative and punishing, step in something. And the other one is really open and generous and adventuresome, and the exploration, discovering, curiosity. So that was a nice aha for me.
Absolutely.
Really great conversation.
Absolutely. And that's going back to that positive reframing that we're talking about. Anytime that you are in a perceived negative space, how can you use your diversity lens to, figuratively, your diversity lens to positively reframe that situation? How can you do that and look at, so one of my favorite creative theorists is Paul Torrance, who the leap skills is look at it another way. How can you look at something that's happening another way? And then that way you can approach it another way as well. So that's very insightful. Thank you. Someone else, one last person.
I can go.
Awesome.
This may not encompass the whole question, but I really, really appreciated a very open conversation we had in our group about the fact that one of our team members has an accent. And so she talked about that experience of having an accent and how people might judge that. And I and the other team member said, we're automatically curious. And so we had a really good discussion about the fact that some people will say to her, well, where are you from? And I said, well, you know, I might say that because I'm curious, because you seem interesting to me. And the other person said, yeah, I like to travel, so I'd want to talk to you. But not everyone asked her that question from that space. And it was a really helpful conversation about how that person has a different experience of some people saying, oh, where are you from? Where I and the other person, the team said, we're saying it because we think you're interesting and we want to know more about you. But she feels that some people are not coming from that kind of a space. And that was really, really insightful to me. So I want to really thank that team member for allowing us to have an open conversation about that.
Awesome, because sometimes, you know, sometimes it could be seen as microaggression or exotification of a person, and you don't know that. But in some cases, people are being inquisitive because they value what you're at, you know, they're valuing the diversity that you're bringing to the group, and they want to know, they want to connect more, not necessarily, you know, we want to know about you and, you know, look at you through a magnifying glass. No, we want to connect with you in a way. I travel, you know, tell me more about yourself. So it's all about in the approach. And so that's what the tools is. So that was very insightful. And I'm glad that you both shared that. That's awesome. So was it anything, you can go to the chat now. Was there anything easy or difficult about this activity? What was the most difficult for you or someone? Just one person tell me. Was there anything difficult about this? And then other people can write in the chat and I'll come out. Was there anything difficult about, you know, being vulnerable in this space? The same question came from two very different spaces. Difficult to get started. A fear of being judged. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is an activity that you can do once trust is built among the group. So that's why, that's one of the reasons why it's designed for you all to stay in the same groups, because once you do the the lighthearted things, you can talk about more difficult things with grace and patience and a much more listening ear, because some level of trust or acknowledgement or value has been established already. So even in your own organizations and things that people that you work with, you have to establish a level of trust to build some type of inclusive, diverse environment. Because if there's no level of trust, there will be no vulnerability that can also lead to some value. There are things that we keep secret or keep to ourselves, and because we want, you know, our own privacy. Yes, but the things that you are able to break character with, do so, and so that you can build an inclusive environment with some folks that connect, who have families and who you might not think have families or same religion or whatever you feel comfortable with. Another thing I wanted to say is that while building your inclusive organizations and you have these activities or whatever icebreakers you choose to do, lead with one of these statements saying that, you know, I encourage all of you to participate to the level in which you are comfortable to do so. And so that allows people to either fully engage or you know, engage into which they feel safe enough to engage. And so making your team members feel safe, making your you know, the people that you lead or work with feel safe and brave is important. So I encourage you all to participate to the level in which you're comfortable to do so. So that is very, very important statement to lead with when you are leading your groups and your teams. I have one small activity that we'll do in the chat, and then last question before we close up. And so this is an activity kind of like the breakfast one, but it helps people again with your diversity of perspective. So the way we think and inclusivity of that. It's called the Gatorade revamp. Now, granted, you can use any products, any pop culture products, Pepsi, anything you can use. Again, I am not endorsing and I don't work for any of these companies, but you can use any pop culture thing to revamp it. And then you simply ask the question. You'll say, okay, for all of you, you work for Gatorade. You are my creative directors for Gatorade. I would like you to come up with one new flavor name for Gatorade and they're naming it after Serena Williams. And you can pick anybody, any pop culture celebrity that people are in the room mostly know. So yesterday I did the same activity, and someone said racket soda, anything of that nature, just so you can get people's minds going fast, like racket fires to their brain. They're norming and they're storming and all these different things. They're getting their minds going fast. So goat's milk. Someone just wrote that. That was pretty cool. Fierce fruit. So in the chat, go ahead. Tell powerful. Name a flavor after Serena Williams. We have balls to the walls. And again, no judgment. So balls to the walls, powerful, fierce fruit, goat's milk, power juice, fierce, let's see, netastic, ace maker. I need about 5 more before we move on. And so you keep encouraging them, your group members, to keep rapid fire with the ideas. Love wins, firefly. And if someone asks you who is Serena Williams, if someone asks, then you say, you let them know who the pop culture person is, or whoever you choose to be the pop culture person to represent a product. Champion juice, game, set, match. She's a tennis player. Let's see, award-winning tennis player. So electricity, Serena serum, the goat says orange slice, goddess glitter. So all of these, what does that have to do with diversity? Do you see how fast people are thinking and they're saying? Imagine if you do this activity and then you have a brainstorming session of whatever your initiative is right after. They're already energized and they're already in thinking mode. And so when we have all of these diverse perspectives and the diversity around the room, you are showing the diverse people around the room that you value them and even their wild and craziest ideas. And even in their wild and craziest and most vulnerable space, you value them there. And so when you do something that's light and playful and you empower those to be light and playful, then imagine what you can do when it's time to be serious and actually get tasks done. So power shower, top serve. Can you repeat the activity instructions? Yes. It's a pop culture exercise. I love that name. I'm renaming it that. So it is the pop culture exercise. Thank you, Ed. What you do is you pick a product and you pick a person from pop culture. Pick a product, pick a person from pop culture. And then you ask the team and you make them creative directors and you tell them to name a flavor or name a flavor of some type of drink after someone of celebrity. That's pretty much it. And then you have them do that for about 3 minutes. Just, you can split them up into groups or whatever you want and just have people rapid fire ideas out, spit the ideas out. Make sure you're letting them know not to judge themselves or others. Just think it, say it, and write it down like a normal creative problem solving session, brainstorming session, just like that.
Dr. Goodwin?
Yes.
There was another question earlier. Could you repeat what the triple A's?
Absolutely.
A stand for?
The triple A's: accept that there was something, incident, or something that was said, apologize / acknowledge, and act. So accept, apologize / acknowledge, and finally is act. Yes. All right. And so finally, as we wrap up, we have 4 minutes. You are superheroes. You are safe and brave, and every superhero has a legacy. I want you to, in your chat, I want you to think about it and tell me what, as a superhero in your organizations, what legacy you'd like to leave. And it can be in terms of 2 or 3 words. You want to leave something that was leading by example. I want to be creative, innovative, and inclusive. I'm going to use my slogan because I am the Chief Creative and Diversity Consultant for the Maverick Agency. And so my legacy is to build teams with inclusion in mind. That is what I'd love to do. And so what's your legacy? Go to the chat and tell me, as a superhero, what's your legacy? And I'll read them out. I want to be known as the enabler, humorous, caring, and transformative, thankful, and careful. Awesome. What's your legacy? What do you as a superhero want to leave as your legacy? Make collaboration joyful. Awesome. Thankful and careful. A curator of collaborative and inclusive and creativity. Absolutely. Always make time to laugh and play. Absolutely. Couple more. Write them in the chat. Always make time to laugh. Someone who shook things up. Absolutely can talk about anything. Revealer of truth. Kind, wise, thoughtful, and supportive of people, dreams, and ideas, anything. It's important that I'm reading these out loud, and this is something else. When people hear that their ideas, things are read out loud, they feel valued. Even when you call someone's name and you say thank you for contributing, just that thank you goes a long way. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Amy, Yardina, Chris, and Fern. Everyone, Martina. Let's see. Let's go. Just imagine how Stacy and everyone, Kelsey, Shafali, Jane, everyone who has said something today, I really appreciate you. So one of the most important words people like to hear is their name. So make sure that you're, using your name, someone's name when you're speaking to them. It's a diverse perspective tool in itself to let other people know that you see them and that you value them and that you hear them and appreciate them as well. So if there are any questions at this point, we have 1 minute left, and that is my time. I really appreciate everyone's enthusiasm and their contributions to the chat and into their individual groups. I'm hopeful that you can use these diversity tools to help you build innovative, creative, and inclusive environments with the teams that you lead and the teams that you work with. If anyone wants to reach out and have any questions or wants to, debrief or chat or consult, anything of that nature, you can be reached at goodwinashley85@gmail.com, goodwinashley85@gmail.com, or you can visit the maverickagency.org if you or your organization is looking for a diversity consultant. I left the Department of Defense. I'm in Washington, D.C. right now. I was just meeting with the Air Force leadership commanders to actually talk to them about this same presentation. So if you're looking for your organization to have a training similar or more in-depth, please feel free to reach out. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much. This is an excellent group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Goodwin. This was fantastic. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.